Welcome to the Discourse Analyzer AI Toolkit, where articles come alive. You're listening to the audio version of our article. For the full text and an interactive experience, check out the link in the description below. Interact with any selection using our AI assistant to enhance your understanding. Let's explore.
Foucauldian Discourses in Discourse Analysis. Michel Foucault, a French philosopher and social theorist, made significant contributions to discourse analysis by introducing the concept of discourses as systems of knowledge and power that shape how we understand and interact with the world. In Foucault's view, discourses are not merely collections of words or texts. They are deeply embedded in social practices, institutions, and power relations. Foucault's work on discourses has influenced many areas of discourse analysis, particularly in understanding how language constructs reality, enforces norms, and maintains power structures. 1. Key concepts of Foucault's discourses in discourse analysis. Discourses as systems of knowledge and power. Discourses construct reality. For Foucault, discourses are systems of knowledge that define and categorize reality. They determine what can be known, who can speak, and what counts as truth. Discourses are not neutral. They are tied to power, shaping what is considered legitimate knowledge and marginalizing other perspectives. Knowledge-power nexus. Foucault introduced the concept of power, knowledge to emphasize that knowledge is not separate from power. Those who control discourse also control what is considered true and who is authorized to speak. Constructing truth. Discourses produce and regulate what is accepted as truth within a society. These truths are not absolute but are contingent on the discursive practices that sustain them. Example: in the field of medicine, the discourse of biomedicine constructs a reality in which the body is viewed as a machine that can be diagnosed, treated, and repaired. This discourse marginalizes other ways of understanding health, such as holistic or alternative medicine, which may be considered less legitimate within the dominant biomedical framework. Archaeology of knowledge. Analyzing historical discourses. Foucault developed the concept of the archaeology of knowledge as a method for analyzing the history of discourses. This approach focuses on uncovering the underlying rules and structures that govern the production of knowledge in different historical periods. Discursive formations. Foucault's archaeology seeks to identify discursive formations, which are sets of statements and practices that define a particular domain of knowledge at a specific time. Discontinuities and shifts. The archaeology of knowledge highlights how discourses change over time, often through abrupt shifts rather than gradual evolution. These shifts reflect changes in power relations and the emergence of new ways of thinking. Example: Foucault's analysis of the history of madness, as outlined in his book, Madness and Civilization, reveals how the discourse surrounding mental illness has changed from the Middle Ages to the modern era. In the past, madness was often seen as a form of moral or spiritual deviation, but with the rise of psychiatry, it became a medical condition to be diagnosed and treated. This shift reflects a broader change in the discursive formation of mental health. Genealogy of power. The historical development of power relations. Building on his archaeological method, Foucault developed the concept of genealogy to explore how power relations have evolved over time. Genealogy examines how discourses and power structures are interconnected and how they shape social practices and institutions. Power relations. Foucault's genealogy reveals how power operates not just through coercion but through the everyday practices and discourses that regulate behavior and shape identities. Resistance and subversion. Genealogy also examines how discourses are contested and how alternative discourses emerge in resistance to dominant power structures. Example: in Discipline and Punish, Foucault traces the genealogy of the modern prison system, showing how the discourse of punishment has shifted from public spectacles of torture to the disciplinary practices of surveillance and incarceration. This shift reflects broader changes in how power is exercised, with modern institutions increasingly relying on surveillance and normalization to control behavior. The concept of disciplinary power. Discourses as instruments of discipline. Foucault introduced the concept of disciplinary power to describe how modern societies regulate individuals through discourses that normalize certain behaviors and identities. Disciplinary power operates through institutions such as schools, hospitals, and prisons, where discourses are used to categorize, monitor, and control people. Normalization. Discourses produce norms that define what is considered normal or deviant. These norms are internalized by individuals, leading them to regulate their own behavior according to societal expectations. Surveillance. Foucault's famous concept of the panopticon illustrates how surveillance is a key mechanism of disciplinary power. Discourses of surveillance create a sense of being constantly watched, which disciplines individuals even in the absence of direct supervision. Example: the discourse of academic achievement in schools operates as a form of disciplinary power. Students are monitored through grades, standardized tests, and behavior reports, which establish norms for what is considered successful or appropriate behavior. Those who do not conform to these norms may be labeled as underachievers or troublemakers, reinforcing the power of the educational institution to shape student identities. The production of subjectivity. Discourses shape identity and subjectivity. Foucault argued that discourses play a crucial role in the production of subjectivity, that is, how individuals come to understand themselves and their place in the world. Discourses construct identities by defining what it means to be a particular kind of person, e.g., a citizen, a patient, a criminal, and by assigning roles, responsibilities, and expectations. Subject positions. Discourses offer subject positions that individuals are encouraged or required to occupy. These positions come with specific identities, behaviors, and ways of thinking that are deemed appropriate. Internalization. Individuals internalize these discourses, shaping their self-perception and behavior in accordance with societal norms and expectations. Example: the discourse of gender shapes how individuals understand themselves as men or women, or as belonging to other gender identities. This discourse assigns specific roles, behaviors, and expectations based on gender, which individuals internalize and perform. The emergence of gender studies and queer theory challenges these traditional discourses, offering alternative ways of understanding and expressing gender identity. Power, knowledge, and regimes of truth. The interdependence of power and knowledge. Foucault's concept of power, knowledge emphasizes that power and knowledge are not separate entities but are mutually reinforcing. Discourses that produce knowledge also reinforce power relations, and vice versa. This concept is central to understanding how certain ideas become dominant and how they shape social institutions and practices. Regimes of truth. Foucault used the term, regimes of truth, to describe the dominant discourses that define what is accepted as true within a society. These regimes are maintained through the institutions that produce and disseminate knowledge, such as universities, media, and government agencies. Exclusion of alternative knowledges. Regimes of truth often exclude or marginalize alternative ways of knowing, reinforcing the power of dominant groups. Example: the discourse of meritocracy in modern society functions as a regime of truth that justifies social inequalities by framing success as a result of individual effort and talent. This discourse marginalizes alternative explanations for inequality, such as structural factors or systemic discrimination, reinforcing the power of those who benefit from the status quo. Point 2. Examples of Foucault's discourses in various contexts. Example 1. Medical discourse. In medical discourse, Foucault's ideas reveal how power and knowledge intersect to shape how health and illness are understood and managed. Medicalization. The process of medicalization, where behaviors and conditions are defined as medical issues, reflects the power of the medical profession to classify and control aspects of life. For example, the classification of obesity as a medical condition frames it as a problem to be managed through medical interventions, reinforcing the authority of healthcare providers. Surveillance in healthcare. The discourse of public health often involves surveillance practices, such as tracking disease outbreaks or monitoring patients' health behaviors. These practices reflect disciplinary power by encouraging individuals to monitor and regulate their own health in accordance with medical norms. Example 2. Educational discourse. Foucault's concepts can be applied to understand how educational discourses shape the identities and behaviors of students and educators. Standardization and normalization. The discourse of standardized testing in education reflects disciplinary power by establishing norms for academic performance. Students and teachers are judged according to these standards, which define what it means to be successful in education. Surveillance in schools. Schools as institutions reflect Foucault's ideas about surveillance, with practices such as attendance tracking, grading, and behavioral monitoring serving to discipline students and shape their identities as learners. Example 3. Political discourse. Political discourse is deeply intertwined with power and the construction of social realities, making it a key area for applying Foucault's ideas. Biopolitics. Foucault's concept of biopolitics explores how political discourses regulate populations through practices such as public health, immigration control, and social welfare. These discourses define who is considered a valuable member of society and who is marginalized or excluded. National security discourse. The discourse of national security often reflects regimes of truth that justify state surveillance, military intervention, and restrictions on civil liberties. This discourse reinforces the power of the state by framing these measures as necessary for protecting the nation. Example 4. Legal discourse. Foucault's work also provides insights into how legal discourses construct norms and exercise power. Criminalization. The discourse of criminal law reflects the power to define certain behaviors as criminal and to enforce punishments. This discourse shapes societal norms about morality and deviance, often reflecting the interests of those in power. Prison system. Foucault's analysis of the prison system shows how legal discourses contribute to the disciplinary power of the state. The shift from corporal punishment to incarceration reflects the evolution of disciplinary practices that control and normalize behavior through surveillance and confinement rather than through direct physical punishment. Normalization of behavior. The prison system operates on the principle of normalization, where individuals are categorized as either conforming to or deviating from societal norms. This classification is supported by legal discourses that define what constitutes criminal behavior and what penalties are appropriate. Example: the discourse around rehabilitation in the prison system reflects a shift in how punishment is viewed, from retributive justice to correctional discipline. This discourse promotes the idea that prisoners can be reformed through education, therapy, and work programs, which are designed to normalize behavior and reintegrate individuals into society. However, this also reinforces the power of the state to define and control the parameters of acceptable behavior. Conclusion: Michel Foucault's concepts of discourses, power, knowledge, and disciplinary power have profoundly shaped the field of discourse analysis. His ideas reveal how language and practices within various institutions, such as medicine, education, politics, and law, construct and regulate knowledge, shape identities, and maintain power structures. By analyzing discourses through Foucault's lens, discourse analysts can uncover the underlying power dynamics that influence how we understand the world, how truth is constructed, and how individuals are disciplined and controlled within society. Foucault's work emphasizes that discourses are not neutral or purely intellectual exercises. They are deeply embedded in social practices and have real effects on people's lives. Understanding these discourses and the power relations they sustain is crucial for challenging and transforming the structures of knowledge and power that govern our society. Frequently asked questions. What are Foucauldian discourses in discourse analysis? Foucauldian discourses refer to systems of knowledge and power that shape how we understand and interact with the world. According to Michel Foucault, discourses are not just collections of words or texts. They are deeply embedded in social practices, institutions, and power relations. Discourses determine what can be known, who can speak, and what is considered true within a specific historical and social context. How do discourses construct reality according to Foucault? Foucault argued that discourses construct reality by defining and categorizing knowledge. They shape what is considered legitimate knowledge and marginalize other perspectives. Discourses are tied to power, meaning that those who control discourse also control what is accepted as truth. This process, known as the knowledge-power nexus, underscores that knowledge is not separate from power but is deeply intertwined with it. What is the archaeology of knowledge in Foucault's Discourse Analysis? The archaeology of knowledge is a method developed by Foucault to analyze the history of discourses. This approach focuses on uncovering the underlying rules and structures that govern the production of knowledge in different historical periods. It involves identifying discursive formations, which are sets of statements and practices that define a particular domain of knowledge at a specific time. Foucault's archaeology highlights how discourses change over time, often through abrupt shifts that reflect changes in power relations. What is genealogy in Foucault's Discourse Analysis? Genealogy is Foucault's method for exploring how power relations have evolved over time. It examines the historical development of discourses and how they are interconnected with power structures. Genealogy reveals how power operates through everyday practices and discourses, not just through overt coercion, and how these power relations shape social practices and institutions. It also explores how discourses are contested and how alternative discourses emerge in resistance to dominant power structures. What is the concept of disciplinary power in Foucault's work? Disciplinary power refers to the way modern societies regulate individuals through discourses that normalize certain behaviors and identities. This form of power operates through institutions such as schools, hospitals, and prisons, where discourses are used to categorize, monitor, and control people. Disciplinary power is characterized by practices like surveillance and normalization, which lead individuals to internalize societal norms and regulate their own behavior. How do discourses shape identity and subjectivity according to Foucault? Foucault argued that discourses play a crucial role in the production of subjectivity, which refers to how individuals understand themselves and their place in the world. Discourses offer subject positions that individuals are encouraged or required to occupy, defining what it means to be a particular kind of person, e.g., a citizen, a patient, a criminal. These discourses are internalized by individuals, shaping their self-perception and behavior in accordance with societal norms and expectations. What is the power-knowledge concept in Foucault's theory? The power-knowledge concept in Foucault's theory emphasizes that power and knowledge are not separate entities but are mutually reinforcing. Discourses that produce knowledge also reinforce power relations, and vice versa. Foucault used the term, regimes of truth, to describe the dominant discourses that define what is accepted as true within a society. These regimes are maintained through institutions that produce and disseminate knowledge, such as universities, media, and government agencies. Can you provide an example of Foucauldian discourse in the medical field? In the medical field, Foucauldian discourse analysis reveals how power and knowledge intersect to shape our understanding of health and illness. The discourse of biomedicine, for example, constructs a reality in which the body is viewed as a machine to be diagnosed, treated, and repaired. This discourse marginalizes other ways of understanding health, such as holistic or alternative medicine, which may be considered less legitimate within the dominant biomedical framework. How do Foucault's concepts apply to educational discourse? Foucault's concepts apply to educational discourse by revealing how schools function as sites of disciplinary power. Standardized testing and other forms of assessment reflect the normalization practices that define what is considered successful or appropriate behavior in education. Surveillance practices in schools, such as attendance tracking and grading, serve to discipline students and shape their identities as learners, reinforcing the power of educational institutions. How can Foucault's ideas be used to analyze political discourse? Foucault's ideas can be used to analyze political discourse by exploring how power operates through discourses that regulate populations and shape social realities. For example, the discourse of national security often justifies state surveillance, military intervention, and restrictions on civil liberties by framing these measures as necessary for protecting the nation. This discourse reflects regimes of truth that reinforce the power of the state and marginalize alternative perspectives. What role does legal discourse play in Foucauldian discourse analysis? In Foucauldian discourse analysis, legal discourse plays a key role in constructing norms and exercising power. The discourse of criminal law, for example, reflects the power to define certain behaviors as criminal and to enforce punishments. Legal discourses contribute to the disciplinary power of the state by categorizing individuals as conforming to or deviating from societal norms, shaping societal perceptions of morality and deviance. How does Foucault's concept of biopolitics relate to discourse analysis? Foucault's concept of biopolitics relates to discourse analysis by examining how political discourses regulate populations through practices such as public health, immigration control, and social welfare. Biopolitics involves the management of life and bodies at the population level, where discourses define who is considered a valuable member of society and who is marginalized or excluded. This concept helps to analyze how power operates through the regulation of bodies and populations in modern societies. What is the significance of understanding Foucauldian discourses in discourse analysis? Understanding Foucauldian discourses in discourse analysis is significant because it reveals how language and practices within various institutions construct and regulate knowledge, shape identities, and maintain power structures. By analyzing discourses through Foucault's lens, discourse analysts can uncover the underlying power dynamics that influence how we understand the world, how truth is constructed, and how individuals are disciplined and controlled within society.